Hello friends, welcome to a new reading vlog on my channel. I am Hannah and it is belatedly time, as you will know from the thumbnail of this video, to tackle Summer by Ali Smith. Now, it is September, so I should have got to this sooner. But we are currently having a late summer heat wave and I decided no, now is the time to do summer. Now, when I am halfway through trying to read the Booker Prize longlist, is the best possible time to pick up Summer by Ali Smith. So if you are new to my channel and you've not seen my previous videos about this series of books, or Ali Smith in general, I am a big fan of Ali Smith. She's my favourite. She's my favourite author. She's my favourite author. But I came to her quite late in my reading life, and there's a lot of her backlist that I haven't read, including the seasonal quartet, which starts with autumn, winter, spring, and then this one, summer. I have vlogged in the past my reading experiences of each of those books in the appropriate seasons, so I am going to try and find you some summary b-roll if I can for this video, so that we're keeping the vibes consistent. And I love everything Ali Smith does. I did have a little wobble with Spring. I still thought it was an excellent book. I just didn't. Normally I adore Ali Smith's books, and I think I just really liked Spring. I'm really hoping that this one is a return to full adoration for Ali. As always with an Ali Smith book, I have absolutely no idea what it's about, and I don't want to know, because to me and for me, the experience of reading Ali Smith books is my absolute favourite reading experience of any writer that I read, and I find my enjoyment is just massively improved by not having any idea what they're about. So, without further ado, I'm going to leave you here and I'm going to go start reading, and I'll catch up with you in a little bit. Bye! Okay, so I think this has happened every time I've done an Ali Smith vlog. I'm going to need to be reading you something from the first page. Actually, before even the first page, she always has like a collection of what they call epigrams, quotes at the start of a book. And I think this one from Virginia Woolf is going to set it up perfectly. So remember, if you've seen my videos on the seasonal quartet before, or if you know what the seasonal quartet is, it's this series of books Ali Smith wrote, where she was responding quite deliberately to kind of what was going on in the British zeitgeist at the time. So we've covered sort of issues like Brexit and stuff in previous books. This came out in 2020. There's this brilliant quotation. I wish I knew which book this was from. If you know, let me know. It's a Virginia Woolf quote. And it said, "It was a summer's night and they were talking in the big room with the windows open to the garden about the cesspool." And then literally like page 1, I'm just going to read you the first bit. I think I've done this in every video too. "Everybody said, 'So?' As in, so what? As in, shoulder shrug, or what do you expect me to do about it? Or I so do not really give a fuck, or actually I approve of it, it's fine by me." Okay, not everybody said it. I'm speaking colloquially, like in the phrase, everybody's doing it. What I mean is, it was a clear marker just then of that particular time, a kind of litmus, this dismissive note. This is the bit I really wanted to, because I think I'm just going to read. "It got fashionable around then to act like you didn't care. It got fashionable, too, to insist that people who did care, or said they cared, were either hopeless losers or were just showing off." Yep, that feels true, doesn't it? That does feel true. Got those tingly Ali vibes. Cool. Gonna carry on. Bye. Nope, I should have just carried on reading.
It's like a lifetime ago, but it isn't. It's literally only a few months since a time when people who'd lived in this country all their lives, or most of their lives, started to get arrested and threatened with deportation or deported. So, and when a government shut down its own parliament because it couldn't get the result it wanted. So, when so many people voted people into power who looked them straight in the eye and lied to them. So, when one continent burned and another one melted. So, when people in power across the world started picking off groups of people by religion, ethnicity, sexuality, intellectual or political descent. So, but no, true. Not everyone said it. So good.
Hey, I'm on my lunch break, so I thought I would chat to you about how summer is going while I make a salad. Will it be a massive shocker to say I'm really enjoying it? Who would have thought me enjoying an Ali Smith book? But those of you who've seen my other videos on this, if you've seen the spring one, you will know that I did have a little bit of a wobble with spring. But we have returned to form with full force in summer. So obviously I read you that opening, and this sort of setup of how we engage with people we don't agree with, whether they are, you know, political opponents or members of our own family, is definitely something that this book is concerned with. So, as always with these particular Ali Smith books, I mean, I think Ali Smith books more broadly too, but she's very, very good at zeroing in on a family or a domestic situation, or just kind of, you know, interpersonal relationships, and using those relationships to explore big issues in society and in the world. And in this book so far, she's doing that through this family who live in Brighton. And we start seeing mostly from the perspective of a teenage daughter called Sasha. And she lives with her mum, who hasn't been an actor for a really long time, but still sort of talks a lot about like the good old days when she was on stage, and she's a bit embarrassing, but also you can tell from the exchanges that her and Sasha have that she is a very intelligent woman. And Sasha is sort of like very, the right wing would describe her as a classic sort of like woke teenager, to be honest. She's very concerned with climate breakdown, and she's currently refusing to travel in any petrol run vehicle, and she has befriended a homeless man in their local community and stuff, and that's Sasha. And then she has a little brother called Robert, who is incredibly intelligent, and even though she's the oldest sibling, she sort of feels like she's always been in Robert's shadow because he's so academically brilliant, but he's also a real sort of rebel, I guess, in terms of how he wants to use that intellect. And he definitely feels like he's smarter than everyone else, and therefore he knows better than everyone else. And he's been very suckered in to sort of right-wing, sort of a bit racist, bit xenophobic, a bit incel-y. But he thinks because he's smart that there's no way that there's anything wrong with what he's saying, because it's all like correct and true, right? And him and Sasha then have this really interesting relationship where you can see that they're at loggerheads all the time, and he thinks she's like some kind of like emotional idiot, and she's like, no, you're an idiot. But yeah, their relationship, I think, is going to be really interesting. He like doesn't go to school. He's a bit of a prankster. He's just generally like, imagine like the really precocious fucking smart kids, but like dialed up to 100. So that's the people that live in her house. So Sasha, her mum, her brother. But then we also have her dad. So her dad, I think, left the family a few years previously to the sort of book taking place, I guess. But he bought the house next door because he wanted to still be kind of close to the family. And him and his girlfriend live next door, and his girlfriend is very interesting. She has banned Robert from going over to the house because she basically doesn't want to hear his bullshit anymore. And they're the kind of characters that we've got. And as we often have in an Ali Smith book, through their exchanges, we're sort of exploring other issues, and there are sort of she pushes the believability or the realism, I guess, of some of those situations. So the book, after that first little intro that I read you, we get this exchange between Hannah and her mum, because Hannah's writing this essay for school. Did I just call her Hannah? Oh, it's because the person they talk about is called Hannah. I'm not just thinking about myself. So Sasha is writing this essay for school, and she has like found this quotation that's about like forgiveness, because their teachers making them write essays about forgiveness, because this whole book is taking place in like just after Brexit has like come through. So not the vote, the actual like, we have now Brexited. And the teacher was like, I think we all need to write an essay on forgiveness. So Hannah's writing her essay. Sasha is writing her essay on forgiveness. And she finds this quote by the philosopher Hannah Arendt. I never know how to pronounce that DT thing. But yeah, so she finds this quote, and she finds it like on like, you know, those like quotation sites, there's like a million of them. And she sources it as like whatever that quote site is. And her mum and her have this kind of like really long exchange about why the mum doesn't think that like that's not quoted, that's not like sourcing it. It's really important. Like Hannah might not have actually said that. This, you know, that could just be a quotation attributed to her, or maybe you're not giving her the credit that she deserves. And Sasha's like, get off my case, it doesn't matter, the internet is a primary source. And so through that exchange, Ali Smith's also introducing these ideas of, you know, like fact checking, and do we really know where the information that we're spouting and the truth that we're talking about, as if it is truth, do we know where that comes from, and have we checked that that's actually true? So you're kind of getting some of those ideas through it. And then there's Robert is a real prankster, and he has turned the volume up on the TV to really loud and left it on a news channel, and then like he has hidden the remote control, like really hidden the remote control. He's not just like shoved it under a cushion, but it's like a rubbishy old TV set, and if they turn it off at the wall, they might not be able to get it back on at all. So they're just living in this house where the news is just on really loud all the time. And obviously that is, you know, that's a metaphor, isn't it? So there's just kind of all of these little things. It's so like thematically dense in terms of what it's covering. But I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm like only a third of the way through. There's definitely, like I said, lots of themes around politics and how we relate, particularly to people who have different political opinions than our own. And at the moment, that's being done with quite a lot of nuance, but also definitely with a perspective. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. As I said, there's some things that are sort of pushing at the edges of realism. So Ashley, the father's girlfriend, has she's been writing this book. Robert's found out about this book because he keeps breaking into their house. And he's found it, and it's a very kind of like left-wing sort of polemic, and she's been writing it, and no one even knew she was writing a book. Maybe the dad did, but we haven't really met the dad or seen him or heard from him yet. But recently Ashley has like lost the ability to speak. Like, she's not stopped speaking out of like protest or anything. She just is no longer able to form words, which is obviously, I mean, I guess it is a thing that sometimes happens to people. And the implication, I don't think Ali Smith is implying that it's, like supernatural or whatever. But this sort of like, she's having this sort of, I guess, psychosomatic reaction to what's going on around her. And it's like, has she poured so much of herself out that she's now got nothing to say? Or is she like not... Has she struggled so much to communicate her ideas with clarity that now her body kind of sort of on some kind of level feels like there's no point? But yeah, that's going on in the background. And then we've had the appearance of characters that have appeared in the quartet before, and I'm very excited because I remembered them. There is a real possibility when I read like a series, because I have such a bad memory, that there'll be callbacks to previous books in series, obviously, that I will just totally miss because I won't remember them happening. But this book has Art in it, and Art was one of the main characters in Winter, which is, I think, my favourite of the quartet so far. So it was, I had a nice moment when he sort of stumbled onto the page and I was like, I know who you are. I can't remember how Winter ended, so I can't remember where his story left off. But you know, I gotta give my brain the congratulations it deserves for remembering that much, and just accept that, you know, it can't remember everything. So that's how we're doing so far. That, I feel like that wasn't. I'll dig into the themes more, I think, as we go through. But that's the sort of setup. Really enjoying it. The writing is just, you just get the sense when you're reading an Ali Smith book that she's just having a lot of fun with the words that she's using, and that the act of writing is giving her a lot of enjoyment. And I have heard people say that they find her books really pretentious and self-indulgent, and I can definitely sort of see why that it might land like that with other people, but it absolutely doesn't land like that with me. To me it feels like someone who has incredible powers of observation and is having a really fun time stretching their abilities on the page, and I'm here for it. So I'm gonna go eat my lunch now and then get back to work. Bye. I'm only holding my phone, so sorry if this is shaky, but this is just going to be a quick little one. I am now 2/3 of the way through summer. I am really enjoying it, but the middle section, I think I've mentioned before, that these books are always kind of split into 3 parts, and they always have a slight change of focus for each part. This one, part 2, follows Daniel Gluck, who is one of the main characters in Autumn. He's the old man, if you remember, if you've been here for the entire quartet or if you've read it yourself. And
follows him, and it goes more into his like earlier life and with his sister. And I'm coming slightly unstuck because one of the things I love about Ali Smith is that she will often introduce disparate characters and they'll feel like they're not connected, and then you'll kind of watch how they are connected. But here's the thing, because this is part 4 of 4, this is the 4th book in a quartet, and because I am a person who does not have a good memory, I'm reading it and I'm enjoying it, and I'm nervous because I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be remembering stuff that's going to help it come together or not. So I'm a bit, and I do remember a friend of mine saying that summer was her favorite because of how it brings everything together, and I'm sensing that, but I'm also feeling a little like I might not be up to the task. I'm feeling a little inadequate. I think what I would like to do, maybe next year, maybe later, is like map out the seasonal quartet with how the different characters interact with different stories. I think that would be like a fun little exercise and might help my brain. But at the minute, always enjoy the writing. Just a little nervous. So we'll see how it all hangs together in the final part. It's a Sunday afternoon. I was hoping to go to the Bound Bookshop in Whitley Bay to pick up the final book I need for the Booker Prize, because I've been trying to not buy the books for that, but I have accepted that I need to buy this final one because my library holds are just not coming in, and I'm really excited about it. It was the one on the long list that I really wanted to read. But I called them yesterday and they said they didn't have any in stock, but that they would order one in. But I wanted to go today. It's not going to be there today, but I'm still going to go today because I haven't been book shopping in a couple of months, and I fancy a little trip out to the coast. There's also a beer bottle shop that I want to go to in Whitley Bay, so that's where I'm going. And I might sit and maybe read some summer in some incredibly not summertime weather, but at least I'll be at the seaside. Yeah, so that's where we're gonna go, and I might do some writing, I might do some reading. I might not be there for very long, but I'll take you along. And I'll see you there. Crossing my legs and apologising at the same time for the fact that I'm so lit from above, but that's just what we're doing. I'm very tired. I had to deal with 2 very delayed trains this week, including one which got cancelled on my way home from London back up to Newcastle, which ended with me having to get a taxi from York to Newcastle so that I could get home. And yeah, it's not been fun. And then we went up to Glasgow, which has been fun, because we went to see the National last night. So that is just to explain why I may be a little like not at my most articulate, if I'm honest. But I wanted to record this now because I have finished reading Summer. Actually finished it a couple of days ago, but I haven't had a chance to kind of sit and collect my thoughts until now. And I hadn't planned to do this evening because we've just got back from Glasgow and I am quite tired, but I realised that I'm going to London again tomorrow, which I had forgotten about. So we're doing this now. We're doing this now before the entirety of this book leaks out of my head and I have nothing to say to you. So
I did really enjoy Summer. I have finished it. I don't know if this is just because it's the one that I read most recently and I've maybe forgotten this about the earlier books in the Quartet, but it felt to me like Summer was more of a obvious preoccupation for Ali Smith in the writing of this book, and I know that sounds like an obvious sort of observation to make. There's a lot of summer in this book for a book where it doesn't take place in the summer, but there's lots of sort of thematic links being drawn about summer and what summer means, and also like different definitions of summer and what summer means in certain situations, which I thought was really interesting. It is ultimately, I think, the main interpretation of summer as it appears in this book seems to be around like that feeling of nostalgic yearning that we have for summer. Like it sometimes feels like people spend all year waiting for summer, and then once it passes they spend all their time kind of wanting to get back to it, or wanting to look ahead to the next thing. So summer in some senses is sort of this state of presence when you're in it, but then this sort of nostalgia and yearning when you're not, which I can relate to, even though I wait all year for autumn. But there were a few things that I wanted to share about, put my coffee down because I'm going to spill, about summer as it appears in the book, to kind of illustrate what I mean in terms of how Ali Smith is playing with this idea of summer. So there is, for example, there's a section in the third part where Imelda, Sasha's mum from the first section, we get a flashback to a summer when she was working in a touring theatre company in the east of the country, like Norfolk, Suffolk way, and she is in a production of A Winter's Tale, and there's this bit where they're talking about A Winter's Tale, because if you're not familiar with it, A Winter's Tale is it's a tricky Shakespeare play to update for modern audiences, because it's sort of has some pretty misogynistic stuff, and the kind of protagonist gets let off the hook, and in some ways it feels like it's quite contrived in the way that it plays out, and they're having this sort of argument as a company about what the play means, and so Imelda says they're having this whole thing basically about whether you can do like a feminist retelling of A Winter's Tale, and whether at its core it's all about gender, and Imelda says it's just what happens. She says a sad tale's best for winter, so Shakespeare injects sadness like a device, a playwright's device. He infects things with winter precisely so that he can have a summer, make a merry tale come out of a sad one. So I think there we're sort of, when I read that, I could see how at other points in the book there are also these reinterpretations that we do, where we reinterpret a really tragic or traumatic thing to pull the lessons out of it, and that is something that humans do in order to cope and in order to process, but that possibly yeah, we're not always having like a true reflection or a true perception of that thing, because we've sort of clouded it with our own need to find some happiness. And then there was another bit where they're literally talking about the root of the word summer. So it says the English word for summer comes from the Old English summer, from the Proto-Indo-European root sam, meaning both one and together. So this, again, we bearing in mind the political backdrop for the whole quartet, but particularly this one is Brexit, and lots of things that were going on, but Brexit particularly looms large, and it's funny that yeah, this sort of, if you look at summer as this nostalgic time, and summer as this sort of word that once meant togetherness or one, that actually some people's nostalgia has broken our togetherness. I'm making it sound contrived, but it's just, she's got so much of this layered throughout the book that it is fun to kind of sit and unpick sometimes what she's doing, because in that same episode where we're in Imelda's past and she's doing the touring theatre company, I can't remember what year it is, but it was at the time the hottest summer on record, and obviously when that was happening in like the 80s, we were still getting excited by the hottest year, right? That was still like a good news thing, because at the time they didn't really, or it wasn't widely understood or accepted that that was actually maybe like not a good sign, because I think for most people now, we don't experience record highs with like this feeling of elation. And again, I just thought that that was a really interesting detail for her to put in, given the whole backdrop of Brexit, and again this whole like hindsight's 2020, but actually it's not, because we often look back on the past and we don't quite see it in the way that we think we experienced it at the time. So I think, yeah, that was really interesting. It does draw the threads of the characters from earlier in the quartet back together, although I really am thinking that I would like to do a video maybe where I reread the quartet and map the characters together, because I do have a feeling that I missed some things, some callbacks to some things in earlier books that might have made it feel more cohesive. I do, because for me, I really enjoyed it, and thematically there's a lot going on. I'll talk about some of the themes in a sec, but yeah, there's a lot going on, but given that this is part 4 of what was supposed to be a quartet, now we know she published companion piece after this as a sort of extra bonus, but I wonder if she did that because maybe to her it also felt not quite finished. But I think it's really interesting, even that, because I suppose we're never done observing the world, are we? And I think what started as this sort of exercise of writing and responding to things that were going on, once you get into the habit of doing that, it might be quite hard to stop. But also because there's this idea through the book, we get, as we did in spring, there is a lot of talk of sort of imprisonment and people in detention, particularly refugees or migrants, or basically just people who've done nothing wrong. So there's that whole section in the second part, as I said, with Daniel Gluck when he was younger, because he was, remember, he's 104 years old. So he was in England. He's a German man, but he was in England during the Second World War, and him and his father were imprisoned in internment camps in the UK, which is where we kept all of the Germans who were in the UK, in case they turned out to be Nazis and in case they were helping anyone. So we basically rounded up all of the Germans and put them in detention centres, essentially. And obviously at the time that Ali Smith is writing, and at all points I suspect in our history, we have had centres where we have detained people for not altogether understandable reasons. And throughout the book, Sasha, remember Sasha, our little eco-warrior, she the last sort of few pages of every section are a letter that she's writing to someone who's currently imprisoned in a or detained, let's say, in a refugee migrant detention centre. And we know from the acknowledgements of the book that Ali Smith has an anonymous contact in a detention centre in the UK who she is writing with. And I think it's interesting that she kind of incorporated that very obvious link to like where she's getting her information, or where she's getting her understanding, maybe, of what some of those experiences might be. But there was a lot of exploring different ways that people experience loss of liberty. And I think in lots of ways, the way she structures the books, all the books in the series actually, are sort of, you're following someone down a path. And that kind of comes into play with this whole idea, because it's like once we go down one path, we've shut ourselves off, closed ourselves off from other opportunities. And so sometimes those themes are present in that quite, I guess, sort of intellectual way, and sometimes it's a lot more literal. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't think I enjoyed the reading experience of it as much. I think Winter is still my favorite, but I did love how many of the characters from Winter reemerged here. And yeah, I think I'm going to do that exercise. But let me know in a comment down below if you've read the full quartet and what you thought of them. I know a couple of people, I posted about this on Instagram, and a couple of people had said that yeah, they felt similar in a way, about because the books came out, as most series do, with a chunk of time in between them, that there was this sense that she was doing something more complex that maybe we weren't picking up on, unless you've got a very, very good head for remembering lots of things. But Ali Smith's books are so dense and like rich in terms of what they cover, that I think sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming to sort of try and dissect it. And I know it's funny because these are some of my favourite books by Ali Smith, and I feel like I'm at my least articulate when I talk about her books. I feel like I don't always sound like I'm making sense when I talk about her books, but I think there is a real sort of intangible quality to some of them that make them quite hard to discuss sometimes. I think I'm better at discussing the small moments and the details of them, because how she patches them together and links everything can feel quite overwhelming. But I guess that's life, isn't it? Is that we zero in on details. because all the stuff that's happening out of here is hard to absorb. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it there, because I'm very tired and I need to go to bed. But yeah, if you are still here at the end of the video and you've enjoyed this, please do give it a little thumbs up, drop a comment down below to say hey, let me know what you're reading, and yeah, I will catch you soon for something else. Bye.